If you're thinking about selling your property, one of the absolute first things that are probably going through your mind that you're thinking of is, how much is this actually going to cost? Hi, I'm Mike Cuevas, your real estate dude, and what we're gonna be chatting about on this video is how much it costs to typically sell your property and what's involved. You see, before you ever think about listing a property for sale, you first gotta do the math and you gotta make sure you have a good idea of exactly what you'll be walking away with, because the most important number when selling your property is not the actual sales price, it's gonna be what you put in your pocket at the closing table. And when you close on your property, much like when you purchased it, you're going to have what's called a closing statement. On that closing statement, you're going to see a whole list of items that will be line itemed out that'll show you exactly all of your costs included. And what we're going to do is review some of those costs so that you know exactly what you can expect for your upcoming closing. The very first line item you're going to see on a closing statement is what is referred to as title costs. Now you might be wondering, what am I paying a title office for? Well, when you close on a property, the title office is going to be like the sort of intermediary party. And what happens is that when the buyer closes on your property, they're gonna do so at a title office or a virtual location ran by the title company. So at the closing, what happens is this is where all the money gets wired in from the buyer. This is where you pay off your existing loan if you have debt on the property. Taxes are paid, and basically all of the money is dispersed and accounted for. It is at the title office that title is officially transferred and the deed is recorded into the new purchaser's name. And what you're doing and what you're paying the title office for is the cost of doing business. Now you're gonna see a bunch of miscellaneous fees. Now I'm not gonna lie to you, some of these are gonna be complete BS. And if you have the right team, you might be able to waive a couple of them. But what you're really gonna be paying for this is the cost of doing business. Somebody needs to pull that title report. Someone needs to record and transfer title, and they are a business. So unfortunately, title fees are just one of the costs that are necessary to close your property. Now, if you're asking me how much are these costs, well, that's gonna vary to the size of your property, the sales price of your property. Generally speaking, as the higher the sales price, the higher the cost. Another line item you might see on the closing statement, and this is gonna be state specific, but in a city or a state like California, you have these things called escrow fees. And escrow fees, again, it's another necessary party, much like a title office, that is going to help facilitate the transaction, hold on to, call it escrow. And what they're gonna be doing is that you have to actually facilitate and close the transaction. So if you are in a state with an escrow office like California, you can expect to have both escrow and title fees. However, if you're in a different state and there isn't an escrow process, you may have just one. One of the things you're gonna wanna do ahead of time is you're gonna wanna make sure you consult with your real estate professor, your real estate dude, or an attorney or title rep. You're gonna have a good idea on what these fees are before you list a house for sale. If you don't, you should. Now, another line item you're gonna see on your closing statement are gonna be what we call transfer stamps and or taxes. Well, you're going to have to pay taxes, basically on anything. In some states, more than others. However, what you're paying is you're paying for the transfer of the sale. So much like when you go to the store, you buy a Coca-Cola, you buy a sandwich, there's a sales tax on that. Well, it's no differently than when you transfer a property. However, what type of taxes you're gonna be responsible for is what you wanna look into. And it's one of the questions you're gonna wanna ask your real estate dude. Now, typically transfer stamps or taxes are broken up into three different ways. You have a state, you have a county, and you might also have a local. This will be cities and state specific. So what you're gonna wanna do is get an idea off of what your stamps are and make sure you account for them, especially when you're estimating what your proceeds for the sale are gonna be. Another line item you're gonna see on the closing statement is gonna be any sort of tax proration or any amount of property taxes owed. And this is gonna be the same for any type of water bill or any type of monies owed in any type of municipality, like a tax, water lien, something like that. If you have a property in a homeowners association, you're gonna have to have the homeowners association paid off. So any of these types of accounts, you will have a zero balance by the time of closing. So for example, let's just say that you have a homeowners association and your monthly homeowner association dues are $500 per month. Well, if you close in exactly the middle of the month, you would be responsible for $250 of that share. And that same concept is going to apply directly to your property taxes as well. the time you transfer ownership, you have to pay your fair share of taxes or give the buyer a credit for your fair share, and then the buyer going forward will assume that responsibility. Again, this is why you either have a title, an escrow, or an attorney even involved in a transaction that'll sort of handle all this stuff. This is why you're paying title, escrow, and or attorney fees. Another line item you're gonna see in your closing statement, and this is gonna more be in line if you decide to use a real estate agent. And yes, if you're hiring a real estate agent, we have to charge a commission. This is just how we make our money. It's how we get paid for our services. But the question that you really wanna be asking yourself, regardless of the line item of the commission, is if the real estate agent you're hiring is worth it. You see, there's all different types of real estate agents. There's not too many real estate dudes, but there's all types of real estate agents, and different levels and agents are gonna have different levels of service. So when you're contemplating the idea of hiring a real estate agent, one of the things you're gonna wanna ask yourself is, hey, does their involvement in my transaction pay for itself plus some? And if the answer is yes, it's an obvious answer. But equally as important, if the answer is no, then hey, hiring a real estate agent might not be worth it, especially if you already have a buyer for your property. Now, I'm not trying to talk myself or talk you out of hiring us, but I am gonna tell you that it's so important to pick the right agent that knows exactly what they're doing to get you the results you want. When you're selling your property, those results are all gonna be based around the marketing and the exposure an agent's marketing skills brings to the table, because as long as an agent involved can create a higher sales price that pays for yourself, which when you hire the right people, that's almost always the case, they pay for themselves. And yes, it is a cost of doing business. So there you have it. Those are some of the typical closing costs that you can expect when selling your property. If you'd like to get a more detailed information spreadsheet on this, we'd be happy to run your numbers and give you pretty much almost to the T exactly what those closing costs are going to run, so that you can make an educated decision if selling for you is right. If you're interested in taking me up on that, feel free to contact us somewhere next to this video, and we'll be happy to send you that. We'll give you a call and show you how it works and be able to give you an estimate so that you can make the right decision for you and your family. Thanks for watching this video. If you like the information you saw, check out some of the other videos on our website or our channel and see if they answer any other questions you have. If you just are dying to talk to somebody, call up a real estate dude now. You don't need more realtors, you need more dudes.